I just went and saw the American Society of Magical Negroes in theater, and wow. And I mean that in a bad way. This movie fails as a satire, it fails as a rom-com, it fails to be entertaining. The messaging of the movie fails. It was incredibly boring. I was the only white person in the theater with about a dozen black people, and there were a couple like, huh, that was it. The movie was boring as shit. It ends on a super cringy speech, and it was just overtly racist. And I know people were like, oh, it's satire. It's not actually racist. So before I even get into the movie, let me just preface this by saying that it's not a satire. Saying what you actually think about shit in a way that's supposed to be funny isn't satirical, which is a really weird way to view this movie. I have the definition of satire on screen for you if you don't know it. The use of humor, irony, exaggeration, or ridicule to expose and criticize people's stupidity or vices, particularly in the context of contemporary politics or other topical issues. So by that definition, it almost seems to think that its own message is wrong because of the way that this movie's played out. I know we don't do meta stuff for these movies, but I'm just going to go through a couple of quotes from the writer slash director and the main actor to make it clear why this movie is just racist and it's not satire. And it's actually racist pretty much toward everyone. So there's equality at least. So if you're looking at your screen right now, there's a question that the interviewer is asking Kobe Libby, or Libby or Libai, I don't know. It's Libii, about how he decided that he wanted to turn this concept into a film. And he says originally it was going to be a 2.5-minute sketch, and that is very obvious if you see this movie. And then he goes on to say, I realized over time that what I was ultimately writing about was this very particular defense mechanism that I was taught as a black man to survive in white America. Capital B in black, lowercase w in white, by the way. It was the explicit lesson my father taught me about being nice to white cops. Suddenly, I wasn't writing a 2.5-minute sketch anymore. I'm going to skip some of the other questions because they're all just basic puff piece questions. But one of the other ones says, in addition to being romantic comedy and political satire, it fails at both, by the way. The film borrows heavily from the fantasy genre. And he says, because strict reality can't contain it, it's fantastical because the things black people have to do to survive in America are hard to believe. Absurdity, hyperbole, fantasy. These are the best ways to talk about what's happening. So the last part, fine. Obviously, that's what fiction is. But to say that it's fantastical that black people have to survive in America, which is the message of the movie, coming from a guy who's directing and writing his own movie, who went to Yale, you get the message that you would expect. I'm going to go to one more thing real quick from the actor. I'm going to go to one more thing real quick from the main actor, Justice Smith, before I get into the movie itself. When I first read it, I saw myself in it. I grew up in Orange County, California, a very white place. I internalized a lot of the messaging from my white peers, which resulted in a lot of shame, a lot of compromise. It was a dark time in my life, and it was only after I left that environment that I was able to find my own personal empowerment and identify with community, and I'm so grateful for having people in my life now that see me. And then he goes on to say, I understood this character's vicious cycle of, I feel so comfortable in these environments, and so my tactic is to appease, but in appeasing, I'm allowing them to continue to disrespect me, which then makes me uncomfortable again. I knew I could play these emotional layers. So the main character and the director slash writer are saying that they believe the message of the movie. And the message of the movie, and there's a big speech about this, is that black people are not actually seen. No one knows what they have to go through to survive in America. No one cares. Everybody's out to get them. Their job is just to support white people. And this movie hammers it home over and over and over. And at some point, it's just fucking racist. To say that black people can't be themselves and get along with white people is incredibly racist to black people. And to say that white people need to be appeased or we're going to kill black people or not get along with black people is also just super fucking racist. So they can call it a satire. They can decorate it however they want. They just seem like fucking racist to me. Let's just get into the movie. The gist of the movie is that Aaron, the main character, Aren, because why spell anything fucking normally, is this really introverted guy. No one likes his art. He's kind of down. And Roger, played by David Alan Grier, goes and helps him out, invites him to join the American Society of Magical Negroes. And he goes to the secret society, and their entire existence for the last few hundred years has been that they have magic, but they only use it to appease white people and make white people feel better about themselves by measuring their white tears. Because if white people get too upset, black people start dying. And they had this whole big conversation that's in the trailer about how the most dangerous animal on the planet is an upset white person. And they stand in front of a great white shark while they say it. So that's the kind of movie this is. Aside from that, world building, wonderful job there. black people are all fucking magical and let themselves be enslaved for hundreds of years and live in poverty currently. So way to go there with your world building. So he accepts this job. His job is to help this guy, Jason, who's a computer designer guy in Silicon Valley. He's trying to get promoted because he's really ambitious in his career. And he also really likes this chick, Lizzie. So Aaron's job is to help him get promoted and help him get a date or whatever with Lizzie. Aaron falls in love with Lizzie, so he doesn't want to do it. But if he takes Lizzie from Jason, the black people will all lose their power because they're a collective. So again, some more of the direct messaging of this movie, that black people are a hive mind. If any of them betray the black people, they all fail. Obviously, super subtle, not on the nose at all. And the whole point of him joining the society is once you join, you can see white people's distress. So once you can see it, you can help them. And that's your whole purpose in life, is to help the client. So they go through this story. There's not really anything funny that happens. Aaron wants to date Lizzie. Roger tells him not to, or they'll wipe his memory and kick him out. And Roger has a memory that he held on to where he let the love of his life go, a black woman, to a white guy so that he could keep this job because he knows it's more important to appease white people and save the damn world than to make himself happy. And the message of this movie is fucking bizarre. If everyone just lived to make themselves happy, there'd probably be a lot less issues. So Aaron has to decide, and at first he's going to do it. And then right before Jason's big speech to get promoted, Aaron goes on the stage and lectures him about how Jason never listens to him and he's not a real friend, or he would make time for him and space for him in his life, and he'd actually see him, but no one's ever actually seen him before, and he never even realized that he deserved to be alive until today. All of this just makes it sound like he hangs out with assholes. And if they had removed race from this plot, the premise is not terrible. It still wouldn't be funny, but the rom-com part of the premise actually isn't bad. They just don't do anything with it. It completely fails as a rom-com too, because normally in a rom-com, you have a moment where the main character thinks he's going to lose the girl, and she has a guy that she's engaged to or going to get engaged to, or there's an arranged marriage, or she's going to move out of town with a guy because she can't make up her mind or whatever. This movie, the drama is that Jason is going to ask Lizzie out, but Lizzie has already told Aaron that she likes him, and he's kind of openly admitted that he likes her, and she's been annoyed by Jason the whole movie. So even if Jason were to ask her out, she would just be like, no. So there's no real tension there or drama, but this way Aaron gets to go give a huge speech that's cringy as fuck and then kiss the girl. He teleports her. Now that he's used his magic for himself, he's supposed to lose it and lose his memory, but that's okay because living your life to appease white people chips away at you. To just lose his memory is better. But luckily for him, their magic's broken, so he just goes to live his life. He gets Lizzie. Happy ending, I guess. There are so many things in this movie that are portrayed as racist that are just normal. One of the opening scenes of the movie is he's walking through a crowd at an art gallery, and he's being very self-conscious about not bumping into people. And that's portrayed as like he's being submissive because he's half black and they're all white. When really, if you're not an asshole, you just weave your way through a crowd and say, excuse me. Especially if you're an awkward introvert, which is what this guy is. If this movie had been about a magical society of introverts helping the extroverts move forward with their life, people in positions of power move forward with their life, that would make a lot more sense instead of this black-white thing, because it's just absurd. And the movie also ends with the main girl, Lizzie, being part of SOSWAG, which is Society of Supportive Wives and Girlfriends. And that is a weird thing to end on to me, as if wives and girlfriends shouldn't be supportive of their husbands and boyfriends, and husbands and boyfriends shouldn't be supportive of their wives and girlfriends. Like, I don't really know what the point of that was, other than a terrible joke. So there's scenes like that. There's a scene where he holds the door open and like 20 people come through and they're all white. And again, this is supposed to be like a submissive thing. Again, anybody who's not rude has held the door open for a bunch of people before. That's just shit that happens in day-to-day life. The thing that gets him into the society to begin with is a super drunk white girl sticks her card in an ATM and can't remember where it is, hands him her purse, and then freaks out and says, help me, he took my purse. And the two guys she's with run up and are going to beat up Aaron until Roger helps with his magic. And this again is framed as like shit that only black people have to go through. Spoiler, if you're a guy holding a girl's purse and she starts wigging out in public, it doesn't matter what your race is. Other guys are going to step in. Guys like to protect women. That's how shit is. The movie also portrays Jason being confident in himself as a negative thing. And this is kind of part of the collectivist messaging of this movie, because the conversation being had is that Aaron is essentially saying, I've been told that I'm not going to be successful my whole life. what would you think if you were told that your whole life instead of you were going to be successful? And Jason essentially says, well, I know I'm going to be successful, so I wouldn't worry about it. I would tell the haters to back off, which is the right message, but it's portrayed as society dictates what you think of yourself. So it's just all this collectivist shit, all this racist shit, and it's all stuff that the people who made the movie believe. It's not satirical. You can't just say shit that you think, call it satire, and then suddenly it's not fucking racist or stupid. One of the big plot points of the movie is that he works for Meatbox, which is a decently funny name for an app. They don't make any jokes with it, unfortunately. But they had this issue where their face recognition software fails with black people, and they call it Ghana Gate because it doesn't work for anybody in Ghana. Jason was the one in charge of it. Jason says it probably would have helped if we had had some people of color on the team, but it's a meritocracy, so I hired the best people. And again, Jason is supposed to be the asshole. This is a message that the movie wants you to think is bad, is that a company just hires whoever fits the position best instead of fulfilling race quotas or gender quotas or whatever. So that's what I mean when I say it's not really a satire. It's just trying to say shit that it believes in a comedic way and doesn't even do that. The only thing the movie did that was a little bit funny is when they have this scandal, the head of their company, Mick, gives this really virtue signal speech about how we need to double down on our beliefs in diversity and blah, blah, blah. And that was like slightly amusing, but not really much else to it. Another thing the movie does is incorporate this sort of intersectional view of life where the guy Jason is the one up for the promotion, but we're supposed to believe that Lizzie deserves it more and is being passed over because she's a woman in this big-ass corporate company. This is the type of shit that will just make you roll your eyes if you've had a regular job. Every single person that's worked at a job, especially a big company, has felt like they got passed over unfairly at some point. That's just how it is. Every person at their job thinks everyone around them is a moron, they're all lazy, they're doing all the work, they don't get enough credit, they don't get enough pay. That's just life. This movie seems to want to take a lot of things that are just part of life and racialize them or sexualize them between men and women. And that's kind of the theme through the whole movie is like, yeah, if you're an introverted, awkward loser, life is going to be harder for you than someone who has confidence in themselves, who is an extrovert, who puts themselves out there. That's an experience that transcends race. And the movie doesn't even seem to understand that. If they were smarter, they would have made him competent. He would have been confident in himself, high self-esteem, good at his job, and then he's being passed over unfairly. So at least the message makes sense with what they want you to think. This movie doesn't even do that well. And I'd just be curious, has there ever been a white guy or a black guy or any guy who was like, oh, I really like this girl, and this other guy also wants to ask her out. So I'll just defer to him even though we're not friends. Bizarre. And kind of the whole premise of the movie too is that they treat the white people as clients. So they're supposed to be amenable and get along with them. And if you're treating it like a business, it doesn't even have anything to do with race. It's a job. So the messaging of this movie is just all over the place. It's just boring. It doesn't understand itself. It doesn't understand its messages. If the people who made this movie believed this message, that they had to live their entire lives suppressing themselves on behalf of white people, I would imagine they had to be miserable. And again, it's just so racist to me, the idea that if black people acted the way that they wanted to, that other races would not like them or look down on them. It's just so crazy. I don't even know what to say about it. I'm not going to keep going. I went way longer on this piece of shit than I wanted to. If by some fucking miracle you saw this movie, comment below and let me know what you think. Like and subscribe and all that shit. Thanks. See ya.